students that are still trying to learn a little bit of precision aspects, and then other students that are working on their hero aspect of their concept. So I figured we could go through making a steering wheel, some rims and tires. Yeah, different like specialty components like that.
Yeah, Emil, that is exactly the point. So just for some context, everyone in the class is designing different kind of vehicle, very open-ended. So anywhere from traditional mobility, autonomous cars, to space exploration, underwater. So all the applications are not as important, but the process. So it's very exterior or interior focused, and some of them are refining their surfacing, their line work for either the exterior or interior of these concepts. And some are designing very specific components, like you said, so either steering wheel or a seat or anything you can share with us in terms of detailed sketching. So once you have a pretty solid design, how can you iterate very specific details such as lights or along those lines? It's just refining, what they had from before. But yeah, I'm sure the students can appreciate just anything refinement based.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a student in mind that maybe has a model that could use some refining, and I can work over that? If not, that's totally fine. I can just pull up a previous project or start something. But it might be a little more engaging if there's a student that student's model that I can use.
Yeah, I guess while we get started, I can check in. But honestly, it's not so much about the content of what they're designing, but the process. So anything, if you can pull up an example and just go through, we've done a few demos here on sub-D surfacing, but I'm sure you have very good tips that I'm probably missing. So anything just on that side of things, especially starting simple. I've seen many models getting very complicated very quickly. So just the whole process of how you would go about surfacing something and adding details, adding complexity.
Perfect. Yeah, we could do that. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna kick off here and cover some like key functions that I think everybody's gonna need to practice with a little bit if they want to get that next level of refinement. Also, I'm going to make sure that this is on the University of Cincinnati org. I'll save it there so that anybody can open up this file and make use of it after the session. All right, so I'm going to click New Sketch here, and let's make sure that we have smooth head camera on there, and turn off the logo. Okay, cool. So whenever we're talking about like components like steering wheels or even like, let's say like the structure for a seat or something, there's a relatively new technique that I've been working on, and I've seen a lot of other like auto footwear designers using that I think is just fantastic. And I say relatively new because we're slowly integrating this into the platform. And by this, what I mean is, taking any of these like selection tools, or sorry, these creation tools here, like the ink tool or the stroke tool or the revolve tool, and having the ability to take these and turn them into sub-D objects, all the way up to the volume tool. There's a problem with the volume tool, so I'll explain that in a little bit. But I just made a couple of examples here, different pieces of geometry, and what you can do is grab them, place them into edit mode. And while they're in edit mode, you can, of course, make all these different changes very quickly here. You can turn it into, a box stroke like this and adjust the general sizing of this. You can flick the joystick to the right or the left and start adjusting the direction of the normals here. You can click Simplify Points here to cut down on the amount of edit points so that you have a shape that's a little bit more manageable to work with. So there's a lot of adjustments you can make here, but whenever you're ready to take this and start expanding upon it past the options that you have in this menu, you have this option here on all of these tools that I just sketched out here. It's a subdivided cube, and when you hover over it, it says Convert to Subdivision Object. So as soon as you click that, you'll see that the menu changes, and now there's edit points all around here, and this is actual sub-D geometry, which means you can kind of come in here and start deleting away these pieces and sketching out surfaces from this. And then, of course, you can turn on smoothing as well here and start to, take these surfaces, extrude them out, and build more complex shapes. So why is this such a useful workflow? because you can sketch out something, pretty complex. Like if you wanted to build this out here, especially with like even spacing and everything, that's pretty complex to do by hand. But you can start off with the stroke tool or the ink tool, sketch that out very quickly, make all your iterations, and then once you want to expand upon that, start expanding upon it in sub D. So I'll just go through here. You can see, click through all of these, and now you have the functionality to turn them into sub D. Actually, let's duplicate out this one a little bit because I have something very specific I want to show you on the revolve tool. So this is the initial revolve tool. You place it into edit mode and you have these edit points, and you can just click them and delete them and add new ones and drag them around and make a revolve shape very, very quickly. When you convert this into sub D, you see here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 faces going around. And there's no like great way of adjusting that if you have a revolve object and you want to have like, let's say 6 faces or, less. I mean, you can come around here and delete away evenly the amount of edge loops and make an adjustment pretty quickly, but there's not that much flexibility. So before you convert it to a sub D object, you can change the shape or the number of sides on that shape. Let me just hold this in a way that you guys can see that. And then once you change that shape type, showing the number of sides, so let's take this down to 6 now, then you can convert it into a sub D object and get the same effect, but with a different number of sides. So let's do like a crazier one here, like with the star, convert it to a sub D object, and now we have this kind of funky shape that we can start duplicating faces out of and making more complex geometries. So the only reason I was sharing that is just because you don't have to just use the default revolve, convert it to sub D, and then deal with the amount of geometry that's already there. You can change the overall face type and then convert it to sub D and have a little more control. The only one that this doesn't work well on is the volume tool. If you take the volume tool, place it into edit mode, move your points around, do whatever adjustments you need to make, and then click convert to sub D, this is the only one that doesn't convert the mesh into quads. So it gives you triangles like this. And I mean, you could come in here and delete away some of these center dividing edge loops and start to get a shape that has quads. But it is very time consuming, very difficult. And as you can tell, like just even understanding what's going on with this geometry right now is like kind of hectic. So this is the only one I would say, if you can, avoid using this and converting it to sub D. It doesn't really give you all that useful of a shape. It's great for concepting, maybe not so great for building off of. But let's take this learning now and put this to practice. So we're gonna make a steering wheel today, and then we'll make a wheel, like a wheel set with rims and all that kind of things. So first, I'm going to press the blue menu button, come in here to settings, and turn on the mirror tool. And let's look at how simple it is to make like a steering wheel, like a kind of a rectilinear steering wheel. We'll come here into the stroke tool, and of course, when you first click on the stroke tool, it's very intuitive and loose and kind of like a free sketching line tool like this. We want to apply some parameters to this to make it a little bit more precise, a little more precise. So we'll come here and click point mode. Point mode gives us a certain degree of precision here because we can just click with the index finger and drop an edit point, so we can manage the amount of data and the shape of this. But let's say we want another level of precision. We want to make sure this is on a flat plane. Well, we can click on stroke tool again. Of course, click on it twice to access all these preferences that we can apply to that specific tool. And we can turn on planar tool. And if you hold in the index finger all the way on the left-hand controller or on the non-drawing hand controller, you can place this plane freely in the environment. So you can place it at a random angle like this. Or what you can do is half hold that trigger and rotate your face to lock to any of the axes that you want to lock to. So you just rotate the face, half hold the trigger or lightly press the trigger, and make sure that your controller is parallel to the axes you want to lock to. And then it will highlight in this color whenever you're actually locked to that axis. So I'm going to lock to the y-axis here. Now let's start clicking out a steering wheel. I'll click a couple of points here, something very quick. Click on the index finger on the opposite hand to close the line off, because that's how we close off the line when we have something on point mode, is you click points out on the right pointer finger and you close them with the left. And then I'll take this, place it into edit mode, and start dragging these points to the mirror plane and kind of shaping start shaping this this steering wheel here. So we're going to go for something relatively simple. Pull that out a little further. By the way, when you're holding any of these edit points, you can hold them, press the index finger on the right hand once to make a duplication. We want this to go. Yeah. All right. And that's looking pretty good right now. That's a good enough shape for us to start off with. So I'm going to duplicate this out here a few times so that we can look at different ways of doing this. First, we're going to place this into edit mode and make some adjustments here. So maybe I want this steering wheel to be a little bit thicker here and have more of an oval shape to the hand grip. And once I have that, I can convert this into a subdivision object. And now I have all these edit points that I can start managing and creating the shape. Now, even though this curve was dragged to the mirror plane and it was touching on the mirror plane, that doesn't mean that these sub D shapes are going to automatically connect to the mirror plane. And you can also see here that we have kind of an interesting, show you on a different sketch here. You have kind of an interesting shape that happens when you convert this to sub D. It concentrates the geometry in order to close off this curve here. If you were to do the same shape and turn off this option here, end caps, that would give you a flat end here. And then you can convert that to sub D, and it just gives you like one big face here. But either way, you're going to have to do a little bit of cleaning up here. So I'm just going to delete away all these points except for this last ring here. And then press this button, auto select loops, which allows me to select an entire loop of edge loops instead of just one singular edge loop or one singular edge. And then use smart move and just drag this to the mirror plane like that. And once you drag it to the mirror plane, you'll get tangency. And that's what that black box with the keyhole logo cut out of it is representing. It's saying that this geometry is now connected across the mirror plane. So we're going to create a nice smoothing effect. Oops, let's drag the smoothing level up. Nice smoothing effect across the mirror plane there. So that's going to give you tangency. If you drag these edit points with a sub D object to the mirror plane, and you see that logo change. Okay, so now we have a bunch of different, edit points that we can start moving around and adjusting. And if you wanted to concept on this, I kind of suggest just shift these ones way over. And I'm going to turn off planar on the ink tool here. So if you want a concept, I suggest just duplicating out a couple of variations here. Now, with those variations, you can just come in here and start pushing and pulling and dragging these points around. If you have too much data or too little data, you can come in here and click auto select loops, do what I was doing before. So you just grab an entire edge loop section like this, hold it, press the red back button and delete it to start minimizing the amount of data that you have. So that's one thing you could do. Let's clean this one up a little bit on the top. We can also do the same thing facing this way and pull back certain aspects here. If you want a chamfered, what you can do, I'll just duplicate this one out and demonstrate it here. We have this like key set of edge loops here, right? Here, that's what's producing this very doughy radius. If we click in more edge loops, we can tighten that radius and now we get a sharper corner. But if you wanted to make a chamfered here, like a flat chamfer, you would click in an edge loop here, click in another edge loop here, turn on auto select loops and delete away the main edge loop that we were just looking at. Now we have this like flat space here. And once we have that flat space, we can support that with additional edge loops here. Just click 2 in on either side of both of those, and you can produce chamfered like that. If I'm moving too fast or too slow, or I'm not answering it, any questions that are or workflows that are relevant to what you guys are working on, please do just unmute yourself and let me know, and I'll shift things to adjust what's relevant to your guys' projects. Okay, so we have this steering wheel here, and let's turn off point mode. We have the steering wheel here, and let's say that we wanted to have an outer material. Let's say this is like some sort of a leather, and then we wanted to have an inner material here, and maybe it's a plastic or some sort of a leather, different color leather as well. One really good way of doing this here is to click in an edge loop to establish where you want those materials to be split. So I'm going to click in one there, and then let's do one on the back as well. Actually, I'll just use an existing one there. And if you, this is a little side note, just working on anything sub-D in general. If things start to get a little bit clumsy or chaotic to view, like these edit points and these surfaces, like to manipulate them, it looks a little bit clumsy because you have a radius here, that's the actual surface, and then the edit point for that is like really gapped off. You can turn off subdivision here, and then this will give you almost like a low poly view, showing you exactly where that surface is going, connected exactly to the edit point. And visually, this is a lot easier to see what's going on when you're making adjustments to your surfaces. Okay, cool. So I'm going to turn off smoothing here just by clicking that on-off button. And now I have this low poly mode, and I can kind of see where these surfaces are going better. And while you have this sub-D geometry in edit mode, you can press what used to be the color wheel button. So if I take it out of edit mode, I have the color wheel button, change color and material. And if I place a piece of sub-D geometry in edit mode, then that now changes to this hammer and brush icon. So if we click and hold down the hammer and brush icon, we have these 6 tools that are available for manipulating and adjusting sub-D geometry. Now I say 6 tools because there's 3 on this side, 3 on this side, and this center one here is just your default tool of clicking in extra edge loops. So here we have the precise selection tool. This is like a little grab sphere. Smoothing tool, if you use that and click down on a section, or make this larger and click down on a section, it will just kind of expand the points and smooth them evenly. Edge cut tool, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but this allows you to brute force cut an edge or a path of geometry through your object. This back there. The crease tool, I'll show that in a little bit as well, but I can kind of show it very quickly here. This allows you to click in very quick creases on your geometry. And what's nice is this is a binary feature. So you can kind of click this on and click this off and still maintain the cleanliness of your geometry if you build something very light, which is always the goal with sub-D, is build something as light as possible so that you don't run into all sorts of management problems. Then we have the merge tool. I'll show you that in a little bit, and the separate tool. So we're going to use the separate tool here because we have one subdivision body here, and we want to split that into multiple parts. This is pretty simple. So basically you just click the separate tool, and then start holding down your index finger on your drawing hand and selecting with this little sphere what surfaces you want to select so that you can separate them. If you overshoot a little bit like this, you just hold the index finger on the other hand and then click with the index finger on the drawing hand again, and you can deselect whatever you've selected. So nothing's happening yet. This is just a visual representation of what we're selecting. By the way, works just like the grab sphere. You can go up and down on the joystick here and adjust the size of it to be larger or smaller if you want to select very precise things. All right.
Emil, where can we find that tool again?
So anytime you have a piece of geometry, sub-D geometry, only sub-D geometry in edit mode, you have the option to press this hammer, press and hold this hammer and paintbrush button. And then while you're holding it, you can sort of slide select these different tools. And when you hover over something and then let go of the button, that non-selection is a selection. So it allows you to choose that tool, and it just is attached to your hand at that point. Okay, cool. So we can see that we have all of the surfaces that I want selected to split the steering wheel into 2 different sections. And all I have to do now is press the blue check mark on the left hand, and that gives me not what I wanted. Why didn't that work? Did I select the wrong side of the mirror? Oh, I did. You can select both sides. Okay, that's interesting. All right, let's redo that real quick. Yep. Okay, cool. So now that I have the correct side selected, blue check mark, and you can see now we have two different materials here, two different bodies. So now they operate as separate objects. I can turn smoothing on for one and off for the other, or I can turn them both on for smoothing. But generally, they're just two separate objects now, and so we can start to edit them separately. So this is kind of nice because actually, let's make this like almost the color of a steering wheel here. So let's say we had like a gray leather, and then we had like a kind of off-white leather on the interior. And with the bottom of the steering wheel now, let's say I want to duplicate up a face here to have a location for some toggles or buttons or the airbag or something like that. By the way, I could grab this face, hold it, press the index finger and duplicate a face out. But whenever I'm doing that, it's kind of floating all over the place whenever I'm moving it. If you want to duplicate a face out so that it follows perpendicular the direction of the actual face, you can click this option here, restrict face movement. Now when I highlight this face, hold it, you see that gray line? That's the direction that this face is going to be moving along. And I can shift it up, or I can grab it again and press the index finger and duplicate it. And I don't know why that's not working. That should work. That's really weird. Might just be a bug for me right now. We'll do it this way. I'll duplicate it and then grab and move it, and then it works. Anyways, that allows you to move the face out along a certain direction. So we can shift this outwards as well here. And then the main thing that I want to get across to everybody here is just that if you're not making use of Smart Move right now, definitely spend a little bit of time trying to get better or more familiar with this tool. It's really the main way that you can get higher precision in Gravity Sketch, and it's very difficult to achieve those things without using this tool. So I'm going to cover what Smart Move is for anybody that doesn't know that feature yet, before we continue on with building out this steering wheel here. So this works on an object or edit points. So I'll show you that here. Let's just make a little squiggle line like this. And before I launch in telling you how you can access this feature, just want to explain what Smart Move is. It allows you to move an object or edit points perfectly along an axis. Because you're moving something perfectly along an axis, you can also duplicate perfectly along an axis. And that allows you to get much more precise shapes, especially if you're talking about like a curve that needs to be connected across the mirror plane, looking very, looking like it has tangency on it. So you can grab these edit points, hold them, lock them into Smart Move, duplicate them, and drag them to the mirror plane like this, and have a very clean-looking sketch that goes across the mirror plane. In this case right here, like we could just take this loose, gestural curve and start making handlebars for a bicycle or an exhaust or something like that. You can get very precise with these things. Yeah, we'll make actually bicycle handlebars in a little bit. Anyways, to access this feature, if you want to check one thing before you start trying to use this feature, and that would be press the blue menu button, go to settings, go to sketching aid, and just make sure that you have Smart Move right here turned on to the center selection. There are two settings for this. There's all the way to the right, which allows you to move in random angles, and then there's only X, Y, and Z. I highly suggest that you stick just with only X, Y, and Z. Most of the times when you're moving things precisely, you want to be locked into X, Y, and Z, and then if you want to move things in any angle, you can just randomly do that with grabbing and moving it by hand. But anyways, make sure you have that turned on to the center selection or none of this other stuff will work. Then what you want to do is just take notice of where X, Y, and Z is in your environment. The reason I say that is you will have to have your controllers parallel to the axes that you want to move along. It doesn't mean your controllers need to be on X, Y, and Z. It just means that they need to be parallel to it somewhere in the environment. To actually use this action, we'll take the right-hand controller with the grab sphere and highlight the geometry that you want to move precisely. You do not need to press the grab trigger. We're just highlighting right now so that the program knows, okay, this object or these objects are what they want to select in order to move precisely. So highlight, make sure your controller is parallel with the axes. In this case, I want to move along Y. Slide the left-hand controller underneath the right-hand controller, and you'll get this piece of UI that lets you know, yep, you have this locked in. We can start moving along the Y-axis. Once you have this UI, you can press the middle finger button or the grab trigger on the drawing hand and start moving this precisely along that axis. If you were to move in the X-axis or the Y-axis, a lot of people, when they first use this feature, start trying to hold their hands in all sorts of weird positions like this, and they're like, oh, this is an uncomfortable feature. If you do it that way, it definitely is. So you can just kind of rotate yourself like this so that you have a better angle of approach here. And then that way you kind of hold your hands in the same position every time and just make adjustments on whatever axis you want to move along. So if you can get yourself comfortable with navigation, then this feature will become a lot easier. Anyway, so if we place this in edit mode as well, you can do that with specific points on that geometry too in edit mode. And if you press the index finger while you're locked into that axis, you can duplicate things. That means edit points. It also means objects. Cool. If there's any questions on that, let me know. This is also being recorded, so if you guys want to go back and reference this video later and follow along to try and access Smart Move, that works too. Cool. So obviously, whenever I'm coming in here and I'm splitting this geometry in half, I'm now creating kind of a headache for myself because I have two pieces of geometry that I need to take care of now and manage. So before you get to this step of like splitting things up and getting very complex and material thickness and all that kind of stuff, just stay in this phase for a little bit of time. You know, this was a stroke. We converted it into sub-D objects now, and we can continue to iterate with these too. So let's say I want one that's a little more aggressive. Maybe it kicks back like this, and these points here can shift up. Just quickly concept this stuff out. In fact, maybe we want to make a little bridge here between the surfacing. All right, got two faces here. If we want to connect them, delete that face. Oops, delete that face. Click out your edge loops. Drag those points over to each other like this, and you can have them melt together like that. Click in additional edge loops if you want to support and have a tighter radius. All right, so that's kind of an interesting one. Maybe you can adjust the hand grip a bit. Something that kind of feels a little more ergonomic. All right, that looks kind of cool, and we can work on one more variation here. We'll just be very kind of experimental with this one here. Oh, this is a new feature as well. If you hold down the index finger on the left hand and select an entire loop of geometry like this, we now have edge slide, so you can kind of slide that along the edge and not ruin the shape of your geometry either. Okay, so that one looks kind of That one looks really bad. Okay, it's a little more interesting now. Okay, cool. So let's get a little more precise with some of these. So I'm going to run with this concept here, and we'll do the same exact thing here and just kind of like split away two pieces of geometry. So I'll use the separate tool. Let's say we want to take this handle here and split that away. All right, press the blue button. Now we have two separate pieces of geometry, and then we want to do the same thing in the rear here. Okay, split those. All right, cool. All right. Let's say that we want to now have some material thickness here. What we can do is take one of these pieces, throw them into edit mode, and let's say we want this hand grip to kind of go out a little bit. We can turn on offset thicken. So in order to access that, you just grab any piece of sub D geometry. I'll demonstrate this by duplicating this up. Any piece of sub D geometry, place it into edit mode, and then there's this little toggle on the right hand side that says thicken / offset. So if you toggle that to the right, first thing that you're going to see is that this menu expands, and then you'll see yellow arrows around this surface that we placed into edit mode. You can grab any of these arrows and shift them in and out like this, and then that will adjust the size of the shape. This material thickness right now is not real. It's just a representation of what the material thickness can be if we bake it. And what I mean by that is you can exit edit mode, place it into edit mode, and always readjust the thickness here, or the offset if you had offset selected. So you have thicken and offset here. You kind of see offset doesn't show the connection there between the two. And when you're ready to convert this into a real object, you can press the bake button down here. So right now I had an offset selected and I baked the offset, and now I have two different surfaces that I can make use of. If I were to do this with thicken here and then bake the thicken object here, we have the original surface that it leaves us, this paper thin surface here. And then we have the baked surface, which now has data on both sides of this, what was like a paper thin surface represented with just visual thickness. And so now with that, what we can do is just, make a bunch of changes on the outer and the inner mesh. This is also a watertight object now, so this can be 3D printed. So if we wanted to, we could open this up here. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but we can cut a hole through this now, and yeah. So we can do that down here. Let's turn on thicken offset and drag this surface out like that. And because we're trying to keep things as lightweight as possible, we're actually not going to bake that surface just yet. Okay. If you wanted to merge these two surfaces back together, let's just duplicate this up here and have a look. So we have two separate surfaces. You can place one into edit mode, go back by pressing that hammer and brush icon and select the merge tool instead of the separate tool, point and click, and now they're the same surface, but they haven't been connected together just yet. And that's because you need to touch these edit points together so that the program knows to mesh together those two surfaces. Sometimes you'll have surface corruption, so you can kind of see here that the program's having trouble and it's having a bit of an error right now. If you have that kind of an error, just turn on and off the mirror selection here, like this, and that seems to fix most surface errors actually. So don't freak out until you give that a shot, and that like 9 times out of 10 that fixes whatever problem you might have. Okay. I just connected those two together again because I realized I didn't really want that kind of a material split just yet. So I'm going to drag this up and we can concept on this one. All right.
Emil, real quick, is there a way to offset precisely, like inputting a number?
So I know we were talking about making that adjustment. I'm not exactly sure if that's a real thing just yet. No, it doesn't look like you can click in an actual number, but you can very carefully kind of shift it and see the the point readout of like how far you're moving this. So if I wanted to go 0.25 inches, just drag it to that, and now I can separate this with exactly 0.25 distance. In fact, let's test that with the measuring. I know it's like measuring tool within a measuring program, but let's just test that real quick. Okay. Might be difficult to measure that because it's not, I don't know which point it's extracting from, but yeah, I guess that's 0.25 inches. Okay, so other ways of adding detail here. This one I kind of like. If you have a clean ring of geometry like this, you can click in a supportive loop here, turn on auto select loop, and auto select loops allows you to select the edge loop that I was talking about before, but also a loop of surfaces. And what you can do is use smart move to minimize the amount of distance that you're moving this thing. Hold an entire row of surfaces, press the index finger to duplicate that, and then go left and right on the joystick to scale that in and out. Now, I really like using this in order to make material thickness. I'll usually click in a row like this. If I want to tighten the gap, I'll click in 2 more and delete the originals, and then click in some supportive edge loops here to make a chamfer. So a lot of these tricks are just the same thing over and over again, but applied to different parts of the sketch. And once you do that, you can get a pretty decent looking chamfer there on the surface.
Emil, we have a request from Ally. Can you go over the precision moving, rotation, and scaling tools in the tool belt, specifically like being precise for rotating an object like 180 degrees or something?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a really good point. And we'll also use that tool for some other demos today. But if you guys haven't used the precision tool, it's a little bit tricky to get used to in the beginning, but it's also super useful. Let's say we wanted to rotate. Yeah, this is a good example. Let's say we wanted to rotate this steering wheel a couple of degrees backwards so that it has like more of an aggressive like tilt to it instead of being like fully upright like this. Well, what we could do is take both of these objects and group them together by grabbing them both at the same time and pressing the purple button. And then you want to make sure that you have the tool belt accessible as well. The tool belt here is this belt that if you hold the the middle finger trigger on your right hand controller and then swipe across your body, you can place the tool belt. You can wear the tool belt or you can take it off. Same action brings that feature up and down. And then if you want to make sure that you have that feature turned on, you press the blue button here, go to settings, and then go to this star icon here that's labeled beta. This is still a beta feature, so we don't know how it's going to change in the future. That's why it's in this section of the program. And you just want to make sure that you have the tool belt enabled. That means the toggle to the right, and it will say enabled. So once you have that, then you can hold the middle finger button on the right hand, drag across your body, and you have these different tools that are available to you. All these tools are okay. In my opinion, this is the only actual, like, really useful one. So this is what Ali was asking about. This is the precision tool. So in order to be using this tool, you do need to be holding it. That means you highlight it and grab it like an object. Then you point and you click on something in order to make a selection, to tell the computer this is what you want to select to move and change and rotate and do all sorts of stuff to. Once you have your object selected, you'll notice wherever you pointed and clicked, it placed the, what do you call it, the pivot point. So now this is the origin for whatever we're going to change this, or however we're going to adjust this object. If you want to calculate the center of an object that you're moving, then you just click one more time with the index finger and it will calculate the center for the object or the objects that you have grouped together. So I'll do that one more time. Grab the tool, point, click. We would be making all our adjustments from where that placement is. So we want to calculate the center, click one more time with the index finger, and now this has calculated the center of that object. So now that we have the center of this object, we can see these arrows. If you hover over these arrows, they will highlight, or in this case, they'll expand. Same thing with these planes. And if you click one more time, while hovering over something with the index finger and hold the index finger in, you can start moving this precisely along an axis. If you want to rotate, you just click the joystick or flick the joystick left or right, and then you have movement, rotation, and scaling. So scaling, you just grab this green box and scale this up and down. Rotation, you hover over one of these rings and you move around like this. That will allow you to rotate it. And then I already showed you movement as well. For each of these options here, you'll see this option on the handle of this tool that says snap. If you click the color menu button, this will turn snap on. When that's white, that lets you know that snap's on. It's not the best UI. It's very difficult to see that. But once you turn snap on and you do the same exact action, for example, with rotate, this will allow you to rotate in increments of 5, which makes it very easy to just slightly tilt this thing back, maybe about 10 degrees like that. And now it has a much more aggressive stance to it. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, a lot better like that. Cool. So let's expand upon this a little bit more. I'm gonna grab this and place it into edit mode, and let's say that we want to like connect a column here or something to this steering wheel and expand upon it more. Well, one thing we could do is come in here with the revolve tool and place the axes like this on the mirror plane, sketch out a quick shape like that, place it into edit mode, delete away these points and start designing the column that we actually want here. Say we want this to look very simple and kind of extruded off of the dashboard there. All right, now let's convert this to a sub-D object here. Let's turn 8 sides on, convert it to a sub-D object. Because this was done with the mirror plane, it will, and because this was done with mirror on, and it's placed on the mirror plane, you will have 2 sides to this object. So I suggest just deleting one side like this of data, and then shifting these points over to the mirror plane, and they'll connect. And now this is a truly mirrored piece of geometry. And yeah, let's merge these two together now. So let's go to the merge tool, click on this object, and we can start to figure out how to mesh this geometry together. So I will delete away this face here. The lighting isn't that good. Also change it. Go. And we'll duplicate out our faces and figure out how to connect these. There we go. I'll turn smoothing on just so we can see what this looks like. Again, we have that error that's happening for some reason, so I just turn on and off the mirror. All right, looks very doughy right now, but if we come in here and click in some edge loops, and do that same chamfer trick I was showing you, and tighten things up a bit. If we want material gap here, let's turn this on blue. I feel like it comes across better on blue. Yeah, if we want that material gap, we can also do the same thing I was talking about before. Just auto select loops, lock yourself into X, Y, and Z. Press the index finger to duplicate, and then left and right on the joystick to scale this in and out. There we go. Okay, and of course, if we want material breakup here as well, what we can do is same exact thing I was showing before. Just come here to the separate tool, separate those two pieces. Let's do some material thicken here. Drag this inward. So a lot of this is just, you can kind of see that, again, the same actions over and over again, but just applied in different parts of the project. Okay. Let's do, just because I'm conscious of time, I don't know if we'll have enough time for the bike handlebars and the rims, so we should focus on the wheel right now. Well, actually, let's bake this surface now, just so that we can finish things off here. Oops. Still glued together. There we go. Okay. Yeah, let's move on from this one. So for a wheel, first off, I think if you come here to prefabs and then you switch from built-in models to import models, and then under import models, you go to this feature here, or sorry, this folder here, reference library. There is a bunch of 3D objects that we've compiled into different folders that you can make use of for any project that you're using. So for instance, we have vehicles here. So you can make use of bicycle models. We have some car models here as well. Let's see, vehicle architecture, exterior components. Under exterior components, we have wheels. This is a lot of folders, so I'm sorry for all the subfolders here, but we have car wheels and we have truck wheels. So let's just click truck wheels here. These were all built natively in Gravity Sketch. That means, well, I'll show you what that means in a little bit. But let's see, we have truck wheel, on-road, off-road. Let's click the off-road one here. point and click to load the actual object, and then point and click one more time in order to place it in the environment. That's just a preview, but if we press the blue check mark, then we have actually imported that into the space. Let's shift these wheels out of the way a little bit here. And yeah, now we have this wheel that we can make use of. So you could either take this and place it on your project, kind of space it out, grab and place it into, or sorry, grab the whole thing and long hold the blue menu button because it's made up of multiple objects. So you have to place them all into edit mode and then turn mirror on. And you can use this as like a base for you to start sketching, or you can use this as a stand-in while you're working on your surfacing or whatever, but then you can also place it into edit mode and start to make further adjustments to it and really refine things. So when I said that this was made in natively in Gravity Sketch, what I meant by that is that we can ungroup this object, again, grab, hold, purple button, and take any of these components here, and you can tell that they were built natively in Gravity Sketch because you can adjust one and all of these options change here. Now, right now I'm showing you how to adjust something that's already existing here that was in the reference library, but we can also do this from scratch. So I'm gonna actually delete away everything that's in here except for the actual tire. I'll make this blue. Change the lighting a little bit. And let's start building upon this and designing our own off-road wheel. So obviously this is going to be done with the revolve tool, but right now we just have the revolve tool and we're placing this anywhere in space. So how do we find, what we're going to need to do is find a way to connect this revolve tool that we're using right now to the same exact axes that this wheel already has. You can reconnect to any axes you were sketching on. So I'll show this here. Any axes you were sketching on by highlighting that object. You don't have to press the grab button, you just highlight and then half hold the index finger on the left hand controller. You'll see these red arrows appear. All you have to do is drag this axis while lightly pressing that trigger over to those arrows and it will automatically snap right back to the same axis as before, and we can continue sketching and creating over top of that axis again. So I'll do the same thing here. Select by highlighting, lightly press the index trigger, drag it to those red arrows, and now I can start creating over top of this. So let's click in a bit of a rim here. Just going to make a general shape, place that into edit mode and start adjusting it. The reason I do that is you'll almost never sketch a perfect shape. All the precision happens with in edit mode when you place an object in the edit mode. Okay, cool. So we have like a metal rim placed out here in the environment. That's a good start. And now what we want to do is start designing the spokes here. So personally, I would suggest going to layers here, creating a new layer and just doing like rim designs and having a safe layer for that and then locking everything else. And now we can come in here with the ink tool, turn this to black. Click on it twice so that we get the preferences, and you have an option here called polar symmetry. Now you can drag this polar symmetry up to 12 or down to 0. 0 is off, and then any of these other numbers here is just the amount of time that this is going to be revolved around an axis. So let's do 6 here. Now what you can do is like very quickly start concepting what kind of a rim that you're going to want on your vehicle. So let's just do something relatively quick. All right, let's say that this is our rim. Okay, something happens in there. We don't know yet. Okay, so that's our initial sketch that we can start to use and build around. So now I'll take this and lower the visibility and lock it and create a new layer here, and we will come to the stroke tool. to start actually building this out, double click on the stroke tool, turn on point mode, ribbon stroke, and sub D. Now with that, we can start sketching out surface data each time we click the index finger, and of course close that off with the other index finger, just like we did with point mode with a regular stroke. And now we can also turn polar symmetry on here as well. And what did we do here before? That's 7 times? No, 6 times around. Okay, cool. So we can match that to 6. And sorry, was that 6? Yeah, okay, it was. Cool. So we can turn that to 6 to match our underlying sketch here, and then start clicking in some sub-D surfaces in order to build this rim design here. So that's what I'm going to start to do here. I'm being very careful with the amount of points that I'm dropping in. I don't want to drop in too much data. Even if it looks doughy right now, it's fine. We can click in more edge loops later to really tighten that surface up. And let's place this into edit mode now and make some further adjustments. Okay, cool. So again, kind of looks doughy right now, but we can tighten this up further in a bit. Okay, if you want to do a spoke, you don't want to do the front side of this one and the back side of the next one. Instead, we want to reverse that order here and do the entire spoke individually. And then we will merge these together later. So we're just going to leave a little bit of a gap there. Now what we can do is start to click out the face of this spoke. If you want to, you can turn off subdivision level as well. That gives you that boxy look like this. Sometimes that's a little bit easier to tell what's going on with your surfacing here. You need to add more points like here in order to maintain cleanliness of this geometry. You can do that. Okay, what's nice is we can actually just kind of roughly map this up to where we're going to be merging things later. All right. So we have this. Let's turn on smoothing or subdivision, whatever you want to call it, and see what that looks like. And I'm going to turn down the sketch as well. We don't really need to be looking at that. And actually, I'm going to turn down the rim or the tire as well, and the rim. The rim will leave up. All right, so still looking pretty doughy. What we can do here is, well, there's 2 things we can do here. I'll duplicate this out. Because I already have the sidewall here on this surface, you can see there's the sidewall there. We can click in extra edge loops like this in order to tighten that up. So that looks okay. Or what we could do is go back and delete away the sidewall so that we just have the face, and then just use the offset thicken tool. Here's some quick results. So let's do offset thicken here. And there we go. We kind of have some quick thickness on the surface. And we can go through here and click in extra edge loops to tighten things up. Okay, also here, you can also make use of the separate tool as well. So we can come in here and split this part away. Okay. So make this a little bit thicker here for the actual rim. Bake it, delete away the original surface. Also, be afraid to kind of reuse things. So this rim design. Okay, so sorry, the steel rim here in green. We can duplicate that out, delete away all these points, and drag this to the center and start to 6 sides, right? Yeah, there we go, 6 sides. Start to repurpose this for other parts of the tire. Convert that to sub-D object, turn on subdivision. Okay, so obviously you can keep going and going and going on this, but the overall point is that this is built around an axis here, and you know how to recover from the axes, how to sketch sub-D surfaces around an axis multiple times. And the nice thing is, if you place this into edit mode, you can always concept here by quickly going up and down on the polar symmetry thing here, and you know, seeing if you want to try a 4-spoke or something more. So I'm going to leave that at 6 and show you one last thing here. While you place this into edit mode, of course, you can make those quick adjustments like I was just talking about. But let's say we want to take 1 spoke or alternate spokes and make them different. Let's actually keep this on axis here. Okay, so let's say we want to take every other spoke and make an adjustment. You can come in here now, and I suggest that you only do this once you're done with all of your figuring out work, and you're ready to, just do final details, and maybe even duplicate this and keep an original one on another layer turned down all the way. But what you can do here is click Bake Polar Symmetry. When you click Bake Polar Symmetry, while that's in edit mode, it will exit you out of edit mode. And now, if you take the grab sphere and highlight any one of these spokes, they'll highlight individually. That's because they are individual objects now. So you can come in here and delete away parts, or so let's delete away this and start to adjust each one of these, like I was mentioning before, individually. So this will allow you to make quick adjustments on the fly, and then once you're ready to really dive deep and start adding individual details, you can split them apart and work on these pieces individually and color them individually and do all sorts of things like that. If you want to, you can also come in here and remerge different pieces. So now we can connect these two pieces in some manner, yeah, connect the surfaces. Cool. So that is rim design. The other thing I just wanted to loop back to, by the way, if anybody has any questions on this, please shout up and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. I'll wait for a little bit here. See if anybody has a question. Okay, no questions. So another thing I kind of want to loop back here too is just how easy it is for you to start with like a simple shape, whether it's a simple surface like this or the stroke tool, and use that to start getting into surfacing. So for instance, let's do a couple of different types of bike handles here. So we can take this flat surface that we were sketching with. Again, this is the this is the stroke tool. And we can just lay out a simple line like this. With that simple line, we can then connect it across the mirror plane and start moving around these points and concepting on bike handle frames. So maybe that looks like a really good line that we want to roll with here, or we want to kick this up so that the handlebars are a little more horizontal. Once you do that, you can turn the surface thicken offset tool on, and you can start duplicating out a few of these. And let's make some more adjustments here and just kind of see what kind of, maybe we'll want some handlebars that drop down like this, or they're a little bit shorter, so we'll delete away some parts there. Okay. So once you've done that with the thicken offset tool, you can come in here and turn it into a real object. You can bake it. You get the original surface, but you also get that thickened surface too. What's going on with the lighting? Yeah, okay, there we go. And so we'll do this all the way down the road. We'll make these ones a little bit thicker. Bake it. It's pretty good. This one we can drop down a little bit like that. Also make a little bit thicker and bake. Lead away this original surface down here. And yeah, start to tighten things up a little bit. Click in extra edge loops. You can grab an entire section, hold it, and then press left and right on the joystick. You want to scale that up and down, so we might make that a little chunkier there. Use bars. You can start to separate pieces. Again, like I was showing before, check mark. That takes us a little bit further. Now we can duplicate this out again. And say we want some material thickness here. Surface offset like that. Take this one, auto select loops. Duplicate with the right pointer finger trigger, scale this in. A little bit of a chamfered. Oops. Subdivide this a little bit. If you want to guide surfaces, it's a lot like the wood shop where you can make, just realizing how funky these handlebars look. By making like let's say you have 50 pieces of wood that you need to cut the same way. They're all plywood. And you could do that by hand, but each one's going to have a different variation. So instead, what you want to do is create a tool to achieve that task, and that's called a jig. You kind of do the same thing here in Gravity Sketch. It's very similar. So let's say I pulled out this surface here, and I want to make sure that it's on a flat wall here. I can come in here to Primitive Objects and select the plane, use Central Line to place that plane perfectly, like this. So by perfectly, I just mean upright. And then take my surface and turn on Point Snap to Other Objects and Splines. And now take these edit points and they will automatically attach to another surface here magnetically. That's one of the snapping features. I can duplicate this in and do the same thing here. Grab these points and have them connect with this. So this is what I mean about making a tool to achieve the result that you want. All right, it's been quiet for a really long time. Does anybody have any questions?
Anybody? Questions? I think everyone is just really taking notes, Emil. I think just the different applications you're giving us, and I've even taken some notes on that I didn't know before and how to align things properly. Especially, I really love the tool on just using sketching lines and turning them into geometry. That's a very powerful method. But yeah, everything you're giving us on how to iterate from simple things, splitting them in sub D, changing materials, all of that is super helpful. Does
Okay.
anybody else have anything?
Cool. Yeah, if not, that's fine. I just always want to check in.
Yeah, no, this is awesome.
Kind of what I'm doing right now is like a really great trick for creating negative space. So let me show this. I'll go back a little bit. I'll turn off subdivision level as well. So I have this giant face right here. And one thing you want to really avoid is like stretching faces too far. It's like, it's kind of like exhausting the surface. Like it's just too much ground for it to cover. So let's say I want to puncture a hole in the center here. I wouldn't just delete away this face and then because it deletes away too much. And instead, I want to create like a safety boundary here. So what I like to do is you can use restrict face movement, hold this, press the index finger, and then go, actually, you don't even need to use restrict face movement, so I'll just turn that off. But hold the face, press the index finger to duplicate it, and then scale in and out by going left and right on the joystick. And then now I have this like border here that gives me a really kind of safe space to delete away that face now. I'll do the same down here. And then now that I've deleted away both of those, I can duplicate out a surface, touch those points together, and create a cavity here. Of course, if we turn on smoothing, that's going to look a lot better. And then I can kind of bring these points together if I want. And click in some additional edge loops if we want to tighten that up. do want to encourage you guys to just grab the flashlight every now and then and kind of change the direction of it so that you can see exactly what's going on with that surfacing. Cool. Now really getting into the details, you can use that same trick here to kind of create little ports for the cabling. Oh, and again, I'm going to reference this again just for anybody that's using or doing a mobility project and wants some stand-in assets. If you haven't used Turbo Squid before, I highly suggest that you try that service out. It's fantastic for just getting models that are going to get your projects to have that next degree of like cleanliness and fidelity. And you know, there's a lot of things that are listed on there for free. There's things that cost money, but not too much money, and then there's like crazy expensive assets too. But just see what's up there and what kind of fits the you know, whatever you need for your project. Or if you don't want to go through you know, that process and you just want to see what Gravity Sketch has to offer, then you can. Oh, by the way, all those assets that you get, you can import into Gravity Sketch and set up your scene, or some of them, if they have a low enough poly count, you can place into edit mode and adjust further in here with sub D features. But yeah, anyways, just go back to these folders, see what assets we have. You know, we do have truck wheels and stuff and some car bodies to start off with. There's a drone here. That just means that you're going to be able to get a, you know, a motor part. There's bicycles here. That means we can, this bicycle might be pretty heavy, but you can either use this bicycle as a reference here or put that together, or we could swap out components on it. Let's get rid of the handlebars there and take the handlebars we made and apply them. What is this? That's too messy. So let's group together everything that we made and use this tool to scale it down. Smart move to shift it into place. All right. Kind of an old frame here, but you know, we can work with it. We can use these components or just have it on its own layer here. Turn this down and have it as a reference while we're working on our new part. But yeah, you can also steal components. So that's another thing I wanted to mention. Is we can take these handlebars here. I don't want that, but I will take this. Yeah, and like I was saying before, if it's a light enough model, then you just place it into edit mode and you can use all the sub D functionality that we have in Gravity Sketch here to adjust existing pieces of geometry. A lot of times these geometry pieces or these pieces that you bring in are going to be pretty heavy. They're just kind of built weird. So you can take some time here to clean these things up. Turn on smoothing, see what that looks like. So we just saved a bunch of time not having to build something from scratch. And you might even use this as a base and then rebuild the entire, this component depending on how in depth you're getting into your project. But this still provides a really good jumping off point to think about, where do I even want the hand placement for these bars to be? Speaking
Well,
of,
we have a question.
okay.
Can you just really quickly show us how to import any 3D data from outside into Gravity Sketch or like any reference geometry?
Yes, definitely. Also, how are we doing on time, Gabby?
We have about 3 minutes till we have to hop off.
Oh, okay. Let's do that now then. All right, cool. So how do you bring data into Gravity Sketch? I'm going to exit this sketch and show you that very quickly. So first you have to go to your, and I'll screen share in just a second. You have to go to your landing pad. So let's screen share now. Okay, so you have to go to your landing pad account here. If you're doing your work in your personal organization, then you'll just leave it on your personal organization here. So that's Emil's workspace. It will say your first name workspace. If you're doing anything on the UC DAP organization, you do need to make sure that you swap that or switch this first. Otherwise, it's not going to be accessible to you. So you'll have to come up here, select your school. I'm not going to look for UC DAP right now. Well, actually, yeah, here it is. EDU University of Cincinnati. All right, great. So now we have that. There are two sections here. Personal files is obviously just like a section where only you're going to be able to access like your 3D models, your sketches, all that kind of stuff. EDU University right here is going to be a place where you can drop things in and anybody can access it. So let's say you find a really good bike frame model and you want to make this accessible to the whole class. You'll just drag and drop it in here instead of personal files. But we're going to stick with personal files for right now. This is really simple. All you have to do is come in here, click, drag, .obj, .fbx, doesn't matter, both work. Let's say you have sketches, same exact thing. Go to pictures here, click, drag, and now this stuff is accessible to you. So now I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and I'll just show you how to access this in, sorry, was that sharing the whole time or no?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, I think it's stopped. Oh, stop sharing, there we go. So now if we go into Gravity Sketch, this is immediately accessible to us. So let's just create a new sketch. Come here to prefabs, import models. We did this under this cloud icon where it says University of Cincinnati. Click on that. There's our 3D model. Point, click, you can drag this in, or you can place it precisely. Take this, start making adjustments to it, and using it in your scene. All right, for images, reference images, same folder, cloud, EDU, University of Cincinnati, personal, click, drag the image out into the space, make use of the image now. So it's really simple to bring things in and out of this program. If you haven't used TurboSquid before, just check out that platform or that website. There's a ton of really awesome stuff, a lot of stuff for free as well. Yeah, I think that's everything. Does that kind of cover everything you wanted to brush up on, Ali?
Yeah, Emil, no, this is amazing. I think well, everyone has been taking lots of notes. The only question I have is, are you uploading this file in the EDU, the UC-EDU space so we can reference it later?
Yeah, I'll hop back in here and save that sketch file to the EDU University of yeah, to the school org, and people can open that
Sure.
file and pull that stuff apart.
Awesome, Emil. No, I mean, we really couldn't have asked for more. Everyone is refining their sketches right now, so lots of the tips you gave us will be very, very helpful, and we can get back to you if there are any additional questions. But yeah, honestly, everything was really spot on. Does anyone else have anything to add or any questions? Cool. No, I think we're all set for now. This is great. Thank you so much.